with multifamily too, you're able to force appreciation, so that's, back to the accountability part, you're controlling that. And that's something that you don't want to just account, market appreciation is kind of icing on the cake, I think, in real estate. I think people get in trouble when they try to just account for market appreciation. That's great if it happens, but you don't want to be stuck accounting for that. And, really increasing the net operating income is how you can force that appreciation. So just finding different, looking at the T12s and diving in on there and seeing whether you can increase the income or decrease expenses or a little bit of both.
I am Christina Suter, and this is the Real Estate Breakthrough Show, where we talk about the reality of real estate, the mindset you need in order to face the reality of what it is, and tips and tricks to get you moving forward in investing. I am your host, Christina Suter. I am with you again this week, and I have a brand new person for you, which I'm really excited about because you're going to be meeting him as I'm meeting him. So Brian Wagers, I'm super excited to have him here. I know I've been told I use super excited all the time. You're just going to have to deal with it, guys. So let me tell you a little bit about Brian's history, and then we'll get to meet him together. So Brian Wagers is president and CEO of Wagers Capital, an integrated real estate investment firm, which he founded in 2017. WC operates on several platforms, directly managing active syndications for the acquisitions of multifamily in growing markets in Northwest Arkansas. And I hear a little bit in Texas now, and you're expanding out to that and surrounding markets. Brian has acquired a total of 350 plus rental doors. Oh, this information is old. It's now 450 plus rental doors, valued at over, I think you said 19 million. Since moving to Northwest Arkansas and seeing its incredible potential in 2015, he brings a focused dedication to the oversight of the portfolio, leveraging his local knowledge and relationships to execute our strategy. Brian is also a logistics manager for a Fortune 500 company, where he is the top broker in Northwest Arkansas and a top 10 in his region. He's earned his BA in economics from the University of Kentucky. He lives in Rogers, Arkansas, with his wife and 2 dogs. And I hear it's not even 2 dogs anymore, that it is now 2 dogs and 2 cats.
That's right. We got the zoo going on over here.
That is good. So tell me, how did you get started? I am fascinated with Arkansas because I haven't told you this, but I've actually considered investing in Arkansas because the land is so cheap. So forgive me if I focus on Arkansas too much for my own personal agenda, but tell me about your background.
Yeah, absolutely. So I moved to Arkansas about 7 years ago, after I was in Lexington, Kentucky for a while. I got started in real estate about 5 years ago. I started to have an income. I was doing really well at my job, and I started to have an income problem. I was maxing out my 401k plan, and I was making quite a bit of money, and I wanted to make sure it wasn't just sitting on the sideline. So all roads led me to either the stock market or real estate. And my first venture was the stock market. And I learned by trial and fire that I did not want to be in the stock market. I had limited control over what a CEO's decision was. And I was spending a lot of time on it, even though I didn't have any control over it. So, I put a lot of money in. GoPro was the one, and it went from $35 to $5. And at that point, I knew that I would no longer wanted to do that. So, I just did a lot of research, and it was, I think, a statistic, the most millionaires in real estate in America were created by real estate, or they have some sort of vested interest in real estate. So
that's correct.
I knew I wanted to get into real estate. And at the time, single family was what I understood. And I knew some brokers in the area. So I used that resource, and, I bought a little single family home. That was about 5 years ago. And then as soon as I had that rented out, I knew that it was going to take way too long to get where I wanted to be. I didn't have any nightmare tenants or anything like that, like a lot of people do. The tenant was fine, paid me on the first of the month, but it was just about the speed of growing the velocity of growing my money. And all roads pointed me to multifamily. And I just dove into the multifamily market. I got a coach. I went to seminars and really, gave up my weekends and nights and did everything I could to learn about that. And, I decided to niche and value add multifamily. And from that point, it was about 4 years ago. Now here we are, about 450 doors and growing.
Yeah, that's great. It means, to me, what's great about the story was, well, I like the three pieces, honestly. First, I am with you. I have gained $1 million in stocks. I have lost $1 million in stocks, literally. So I'm with you on I don't like that I truly have no control over this, but I've also lost and gained $1 million in real estate as well. So I should, maybe be a little less judgmental, but I don't like that I can't control stocks. And so I'm with you. I only have a small percentage of my holding in stocks. For that reason, it's a good way to diversify, and banks like to see it, but it's not my primary investment class. So one, I agree with you on that one 100%. Two, you worked out quickly that single families are great, but they don't allow for the level of multiplication that a multifamily does, right? And so therefore you jumped into the multifamily and you educated yourself, right? You really dug in and you took the education of it important, which I'm a huge proponent of education. That's part of the purpose of this show, is to be able to educate. So it sounds great. I mean, it sounds sort of like ideal. Were you like a perfect baby or something? You just always do everything ideally?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. I knew I wanted to be in business some way or the other. And, I think, that the real estate is also that entrepreneurship spirit. I think, with real estate, you can be your own entrepreneur and you can kind of make what you want of it. You can choose different aspects of the deal that you want to focus on, or if you want to do it all, you can do that, or you can delegate some. So I think it really, played to my entrepreneur spirit as well.
So tell me more about that middle phase, because I know that you're not doing all multifamily yourself here, as you're really focusing on syndications within the multifamily market. But tell me a little bit about the middle phase. What did you learn? Why does it work? What do you like about it? What don't you like about it?
Yeah. So, I mean, I liked, when I first started off, I was doing small, medium size apartment complexes with pretty much my own money and family money. So I think I saw, I didn't really know of only a couple big syndicators, at the time in 2017, 2018. And I don't know that I felt super comfortable asking for other people's money before I had a proven concept that worked, so I wanted to do it with my own money and family money, where if I had to, I would pay them back for the rest of my life, if that was the worst case scenario, in some way or the other. But I liked that I had control of it. I could hold myself accountable. There was no one else to really hold accountable but myself. So, I was always quick to be, communicating with brokers, lenders, insurance agents, legal attorneys. And it was a good experience because I got to see all aspects of the real estate transaction, not just, the closing, or not just monthly checks. I got to see the intricacies of working with property managers and working with multiple property managers, how they do it, what to look out for. So it was a good experience. And, now I'm using that experience to go to, larger deals and, more focusing on other people that were in my position, talking with other busy professionals, executives, people that also have their own business, they want to spend more time on their business, but they know real estate is a good vehicle for them. So, I kind of have that connection because that is where I was too at one point, looking to invest my money. So now I'm really, honing in on that, raising capital for other deals, so I know what a good deal looks like. I know I have my underwriting thesis, and I can look at other deals and present, the good ones to my investors now.
So what is it that you look for? Because I mean, having been in multifamily, you know that it's got advantages, it's got disadvantages. What is it that you really look for, whether it would have been in one of your own deals or whether it's in the deals that you're now raising capital for?
Yeah. So, I mean, the biggest thing for me is some sort of value add component. I'm not going after, I know there's, real estate, you're super diversified in the real estate arena. There's a million different ways to make money in real estate. And I
Yeah.
niched in on value add multifamily, C class to B class multifamily. I stay away from the A class stuff. I know people, it's kind of more speculative for me, from what I've seen. I don't have any experience there, but all my experience has been around, C to B class properties with some sort of value add component, whether that be, a big one is just putting in a good professional property management, making sure you have the right management in place. And then also just any sort of deferred maintenance. We look for deferred maintenance. I'm not afraid of heavy lifts. We're not going after like deep properties, but at the same time, curb appeal that can be spruced up, interiors that can be updated so the market rents can be brought up to market. Those are things that I like to look out for, the value add component.
Okay, so value add, deferred maintenance, effective property management.
Exactly. Yeah. So, with multifamily too, you're able to force appreciation, so that's, back to the accountability part, you're controlling that. And that's something that you don't want to just account, market appreciation is kind of icing on the cake, I think, in real estate. I think people get in trouble when they try to just account for market appreciation. That's great if it happens, but you don't want to be stuck accounting for that. And, really increasing the net operating income is how you can force that appreciation. So just finding different, looking at the T12s and diving in on there and seeing whether you can increase the income or decrease expenses or a little bit of both.
Yeah, because every time you increase netting, one of the things I like about multi-units is not only is it more valuable when you solve the deferred maintenance, so therefore it moves from like a B negative building to a B positive building in a B neighborhood, right? And so now you force some appreciation out of it, or upgrading the units themselves. So now the units look prettier, but every time you upgrade the rent, you upgrade the value of the building as well. And so I think it's, sometimes my math is wrong, maybe you can correct me, but every time you have $1 of increase in rent, you multiply that or divide that by the cap rate, and that tells you how much more valuable that building is.
Exactly. Yep. You can use a cap rate. It's a great thing about multifamily, that multiple effect. The cap rate multiplied by your net operating income increase. So you have $50,000 net. You increase the doors by $25 a door, and you have a 100-unit apartment complex. That can really, it may not seem much, just a little $25 bump. But once you multiply that by whatever the cap rate is that you expect to sell at, you get that multiple effect of value creation. You're creating value out of thin air.
Absolutely. I mean, and it's not it's not always easy, right? Sometimes you have to change the culture of the building. Talk to me.
Exactly.
I could see you had a thought go by. I'd rather hear your thoughts than mine.
Yeah, it's not always easy. Like you said, creating a sense of community is good. And I think that's important part of having like good property management company. So vetting property management company is good, whether you're being an active investor or passive investor. I think it's important to figure out who they're using with property management and what type of experience they have relative to the asset class that you're investing in. So I've had that experience by trial and fire too. I was using a single family property manager when I was first getting started with, 12 unit, 20 unit apartment complexes. And, they're great, but, they may overfix something, or they may not, look at it in the eyes of as a multifamily property manager. So you want to make sure they have experience. Same thing with, someone might be used to managing an A-class property, or someone might be used to managing a C-class property. So having property managers specific to the value, to the asset class that you're dealing with, I think is important too. Not just a good property. You could have an A-rated property manager, but you want to make sure they have experience in your arena to make sure you can create that sense of community, depending on what the apartment complex is.
You said it perfectly. I had the same experience, and I'm a little on the blunt side. I'll be so far as to say, hey, if it's a Hispanic building in a Hispanic neighborhood, it'd be great if my on-site manager is Hispanic and understands the culture that needs to be appropriate in that building. Because some A-rate buildings are like, oh no, you don't want the kids running the halls. But if you're a Hispanic family who has family values, which I love renting to that particular subgroup, because they have the family values, and the mamacitas don't let anybody, destroy anything. And they have honest jobs and honest wages, and they're good people. Right. And so I love renting to that particular, but they also like to have their kids running the halls. Right. In an A-rated building in Sherman Oaks, we're not going to have kids running the halls, but in my buildings, we're going to have kids running the halls. We're going to create a culture around kids being included. Right. So an appropriate culture for an appropriate building for the tenants that you have.
Yeah, exactly. Like bilingual is huge. If you are in a market like that, you want them to feel comfortable. You want to be able to communicate have issues communicated clearly
Mhm.
for everyone, whether it's a maintenance tech that can be bilingual or your leasing agent that can be bilingual. I think that's definitely something to account for.
Exactly. So I told you I was fascinated with Arkansas. So explain to me. So I am a Southern California investor. I have invested, as you know, in multiple different states, in multifamily as well as in single family. But I have never invested in Arkansas. It's always been more of the major cities, Indianapolis, Knoxville, Tennessee, there's universities there. Arkansas really, the thing I've noticed about Arkansas is that it really is primarily land and very few there's like no true single major city as a major metropolitan area. There are a couple smaller cities which anchor Arkansas and anchor the need for, Arkansas and the people who live there. Tell me about the sort of secret sauce of investing in Arkansas.
Absolutely. When I got asked to move here about 6 years ago, they said, "You want to move to Arkansas?" I kind of raised an eyebrow at that idea too. It's like, they said it was only going to be a year commitment, and here we are, going on 6 years now. So
Okay.
I fell in love with the area for sure. So I'm in Northwest Arkansas, and it is headquartered by a company called Walmart. So
Oh.
Walmart is headquartered here in Bentonville, Arkansas. So the largest retailer in the world is here in Northwest Arkansas. So they have a huge presence. About 5 to 10 years ago, they implemented something where if you're going to sell into Walmart, they want you to have an office here. So you're seeing companies like Procter and Gamble,
Oh, interesting.
Colgate, a lot of these large companies are setting up offices here. So anyone that distributes into Walmart now has to have an office here. So it's created this, rapidly growing area in Northwest Arkansas with that kind of laying down, and the Waltons put a lot of money back into the community, creating bike trails, and they've got the museum here. And then on the other side of town, you have the University of Arkansas. So the University of Arkansas is this SEC school. It's a growing college that's in Fayetteville. And then in between University of Arkansas and Walmart, you have Tyson. So they are also the largest chicken producer in the world, and they are headquartered here. And you have some other smaller chicken companies as well in the area. So you've got a lot of large anchors in here that not really many people knew were kind of stationed where I'm at. And then on the other side of the state, you have Little Rock, Arkansas. They have a huge medical presence. Um, it's a growing market. It's not as fast growing as Northwest Arkansas. And then there's another market called Fort Smith. That's the oldest city in Arkansas, and it's got some rollover effect from the economy here in Northwest Arkansas. So those are the three markets that I look at. I have a focus in Northwest
Tell me.
Arkansas because I'm here, boots on the ground in this area. But the Walmart is a huge presence here, and they've made it known that they're digging in roots here. They just opened they're doing a new campus in Bentonville. They're trying to compete with the likes of Apple and Facebook, and creating this high tech kind of area.
Work environment where everybody's there on the work campus.
Exactly. So they're creating that. They're developing that, and Bentonville hasn't even it's just now getting started there. So it's a really cool area, and you've got this city, and then it's surrounded by lakes and mountains and hills, and not quite mountains, but like hills and valleys. So it's a cool area for sure.
And it sounds like, I mean, one of the things they say about multi-units or rentals in general, what you're really housing is jobs,
Yeah.
right? What you need is the person that you're housing, the family that you're housing. You want to make sure they have secure, stable jobs, that they can succeed financially so they can continue to have a nice, stable financial life and pay you your rent in a nice, stable fashion. So when you talk about the economy, that's really important. Like, who are the employers in that area? What starts to define the success of the multi-units that you have. So when you're looking in Arkansas in these three cities, are you looking for distance in relationship to the headquarters? What is it that you look for that's your little formula?
Yeah. So it's a relatively, like small metro area. You're about 20 miles to 30 miles from one point to the other point. So there's not a huge factor in me and what I'm looking at. I'm really looking at the potential market rents, what we can do to the rents really is the first thing that I'm looking at. Second thing I'm looking at is how is it managed currently? Is it an owner? I bought from a lot of owner operators who decided that, they've come across a lot of money and they've gotten a deal they've got an apartment at a great deal, and they don't have to do much to the apartment. They can just kind of, not increase rents, so they don't have to worry about vacancy. They'll keep the rents low. But at the same time, they're not really fixing them up because they're keeping low rents. So it's really an opportunity to go in there and, fix up the community, provide a better living experience for both the tenants. And, at the same token, you're providing a better returns for your investors. So that's something I'm looking for in some of the earlier stuff that we talked about, but not necessarily like location. The university, I do look at properties close to the university, but I think there's a lot of that is being built in the student housing community by this university in particular. So I'm not as bullish on the Fayetteville University area. And I know from doing some research, some of the student housing they're offering like a couple months free rent, or, they're having a lot of concessions. So that's something that I kind of stay away from, so I'm sure people can do that, but that's not really my niche.
Okay. All right. What about, I know this is going to sound completely weird, but who are your tenants? Are they people who work at Walmart? Are they working at Tyson? Or are they people who are actually farming chickens? Like if you're in multi-units, then you're really probably looking more at the workers versus the farmers.
Yeah, exactly.
A stupid question, but it's just, I was thinking about farming in Arkansas. So that's why I'm looking for that bridge.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, because you want to know who the major employers are, you want to make sure if one employer moves out, what happens to your tenant base. And I think that is, something to look at for sure. So, a lot of it is the C to B class. So it's a lot of workforce, blue collar workers. A lot of them are in the chicken plants, whether it's Tyson or whether it's George's is another distributor here. So a lot of them are working in those plants, and then some of them work at Walmart. They're probably not executives at Walmart, but they're working on in the stores or some other lower level positions.
Do they have a lot of Walmart warehouses in that area? Because that would seem like the right.
Yeah, there's a lot of Walmart warehouses here, and there's a lot of cold storage units. Yeah, so there's a lot of like warehouses for suppliers into Walmart that have all their stuff that they are sending into Walmart.
That makes sense. So you can have a nice, strong target market for people who want to be your renters in that area. So may I change topics over to Texas? So you're currently expanding out into Texas. So tell me a little bit more about your choice to expand out into Texas versus Arkansas. Let's just start there.
Yeah, so there's a limited amount of inventory here in Northwest Arkansas, and Northwest Arkansas has gotten super hot. So, we're actually selling about 150 of our units here in Northwest Arkansas that we actually have under contract. And, but I'm still looking here for good deals. It's just, there's a lot of other money that is coming in here. And I looked at Oklahoma. I like Oklahoma City and Tulsa. But I've taken an even closer look at Dallas and the surrounding areas in Dallas. The influx of people that have moved into Texas from the past couple of years, I think they've been on the record breaking as far as inbound tenants or inbound people coming in. So as far as population growth for Texas. So it's a super competitive market, but I've partnered up with some people there that are boots in the ground. They have about 2,000 units in Houston and Dallas. So they have in-house construction teams. They've got good property management contacts. So they're in the thick of it in Texas, and they're finding off-market deals. So I'm able to provide my investors and myself, I'm investing alongside of my investors in some of these Texas deals. So I've always had Texas on the radar. I just didn't have a way of getting in there, but I've been networking with some people there and have some good connections to really take advantage of that growing market.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense to me because, having owned in multiple states, I definitely like to have boots on the ground. I'm a big team. Your team makes the difference. Your property management team makes the difference. Even your contractor can make a significant difference in the overall financial picture of your holdings. And so team is huge. And again, if you're going to be from Arkansas, but you're going to be investing in Texas, then it makes sense that your team that you're developing the relationship with is super important. So how, I guess I could say, I mean, maybe the answer is obvious, but you're in Arkansas, you're moving out to Texas. As far as your expansion into your teams and who they are, what is it that you're really looking for in Texas and in your team?
And something I didn't mention in Texas too, it's only
Tell me.
it's a 45-minute flight from where I am here in Arkansas, and it's about a 4-hour drive. So it is, not the other side of the country if I did have to take a quick flight or drive over there.
Right.
And as far as team, I'm looking for someone with experience in value add multifamily. So everything that I've been doing, I'm looking for someone that's doing that in another market, so I'm looking for what kind of experience they have, how heavy of lifts have they done? Have they done construction? Have they done, light value add, just kind of seeing what their experience is, and then looking at their past deals. How many deals have they, gone full cycle on? Have they completed it and exited deals? And those are the main things that I'm looking out for in sponsors.
Okay, I'm going to ask you an oddball question. I actually do background checks on a lot of the team people that I invest with. That if they're going to be on the level of partnership, I will do a background check. So talk to me, because you smiled when I said that.
Yeah, I like it. I haven't thought of that, but I think that's a good idea. I think especially, I think you're looking for more like not like you're looking for white collar crime, I think is what you would be the main thing you're looking for, making sure they haven't had any like lawsuits or any, like you're not looking to see if any sort of misdemeanor or parking tickets or whatever. You're looking for lawsuits, I'm sure is the main thing. So that's a great point, so I haven't ever done a background check, but that is something to look into. I'm looking at the reputation of the people that have done it. And I think making sure they have a strong brand and online presence, I think it's hard to get away with something if you do have a strong brand and online presence and have done some, good work.
Yeah, and the other thing the background check gives me is verification of their length of history.
Yeah.
Like, oh yeah, I've been doing this for 30 years. I'm like, I'll see. I'll be able to see. I had this one guy who was like, oh yeah, I've been doing it for, 20 years, 30 years, whatever it was. And I ran the background check and I'm like, your name didn't exist before 5 years ago.
Wow.
No.
Yeah.
That's a no, right? That's the white collar crime, right? That's what I was looking for. So I'm looking for, depth of history as well. Like I kind of want to see that maybe you've had a tax lien in your history, because how can you own multiple pieces of real estate and not somewhere along the way potentially have one tax lien somewhere, right? One miscommunication of some kind. So I'm not looking for something perfectly clean. I'm really looking for something that has a depth of history, a cohesiveness to their history, to the story that they're telling me, and some actual proof in the pudding. I'm like, oh yeah, no, clearly they've been owning real estate for, decades, right? Yeah. So, that's what I find helpful about it. So let's transition a little bit. Let's transition over to, so you've been investing in real estate personally with your own money. You've been investing in real estate in multi-units with other people's money. You're now supporting investors in finding solid syndications they can invest in. Makes perfect sense as a trajectory, as a career. Generally, somewhere along the way, something goes wrong. You have a deal that messes up. I can't say all the words I would like to say because we're recording, but you understand what I mean.
Right.
So tell me one of the things that went wrong. Like, what'd you learn from it? How did it grow you up? Because real estate will grow you up.
I think, we touched on it just briefly about hiring the right people, and you're a big proponent of having the right team. So I think that first unit, or that first 12 unit apartment complex where I I'd hired a single family property manager. I really, over renovated it. I put a $30,000 8-inch graded concrete parking lot in there. I could have just used, asphalt or something like that, but I thought I would be in this forever. And, I didn't really have a good basis that, I didn't have anyone to consult to as far as what would be the highest and best use to get the best net operating income. I just wanted to make sure, it was the best long-term thing. So I think I definitely over renovated that property. There was another small deal a year after that, that was about 3 years ago, that we didn't really have a huge reserve account. So, I did have to go back to my family. It was one family member who invested in it, and had to get more money to put in to for some renovation. So that's something I never want to do again. It's like you're not you want to make sure your business plan is sound, and I think it's really important to have that reserve account. So that was another thing. So the two main things I learned early on were, make sure you're consulting with a property manager that has experience in that arena. And when you're doing construction on your own, make sure you're consulting with them to see what is the market saying. Are other apartment complexes, what kind of parking do they have? What kind of renovations do they have? Do some research on the market. And then, with the reserve accounts, make sure you're setting yourself up for worst case scenario. That's great if it's all best case scenario, but things do happen. You want to make sure you have a strong CapEx budget, not building up. I think I was counting on building up that capital expenditure budget, but really I should have had that ready to go day one. That's not a position you want to be in, to ask for more money after a deal's already closed. But luckily we made it back, but it's not a position I want to be in again, for sure.
If it, I take it your investor was open to giving you more money, but you had to do some explaining.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the explaining that's like really uncomfortable. Like,
right.
Yeah, I messed up. I didn't calculate. Yes, this is correct. Yes, I'm going to ask you for money. Yes, this is how the deal is going to be successful. I'm assuming that's kind of how the conversation went.
Exactly. Yeah. So it was, ultimately I decided, if it came down to, if I still wasn't going to get them the 15 to 20% average annual returns, I would have it cut into my equity piece. I told them that I would reduce my equity, as a reassurance to them.
Good. Nice offer.
Yeah.
Genuine offer. I like it. Those are good lessons to have learned from, having stuff go wrong, because I
think it was good that, I was doing this with my own and my family money. It might not have been as easy of a conversation with someone that I had only, talked to, several times, or built a relationship over the, couple months. So, it's good to have those learning experiences versus just going straight into it.
Good for you. When you bring all of that to when you're now assessing people that you would place your own investors in, you bring all of that experience to, do they have a reserve? How big is that reserve? Do they, have they truly had a conservative understanding of what their construction is going to be? Because that can, eat into their reserves very quickly. What do they have the right experience in the right field? Like you've mentioned several times in our conversation, I have a story of, I thought the gentleman who had the right experience, but it was the wrong, it wasn't really transferable.
Yeah.
Right? It was a California guy who wanted to do it in Texas, and everything we ran into was a Texas problem.
Yeah.
And it didn't go well. Let me just tell you that. And for that exact reason, because the experience, like he was used to LA, he was used to that type of construction, used to that type of land, used to that property tax, used to that expense structure. You take all of that and you move over to Texas, and property taxes are twice, and you've got oil underneath you, and you've got, a whole new set of foundation issues and subfloor issues, and $250,000 of unexpected subfloor issues makes and breaks a deal. Just saying, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And there's so many different intricacies of laws and different, that's a great point too, that, having that specific market, some knowing how landlord friendly a place can be, or, how are their eviction policy, having someone that understands different intricacies of eviction policies. And like you said, this different oil and land problems that you could run into as well.
Yes. Good description. So you're using real estate for building your own financial freedom for yourself, your wife, and your 2 cats and 2 dogs, and whoever else happens to come along in the process. Right? So what does financial freedom mean to you? Like, ultimately, why put in the work to truly develop a portfolio that gives you financial freedom versus just like, hey, I've got a W-2, what's the big deal?
I think the power to do what I want on my own terms. I don't want to be 60 and having to go to work. I think having the choice, I like going to work, but, having that choice is just something strong to your willpower and to what you want to do. So I think having that, financial freedom can really mean a lot of different things to different people, whether that's not having a job or having the decision whether you want to have a job or not. That's for me, whether I want to take my wife and go travel across the country whenever I want to, having that choice to, not that we're going to be traveling every weekend, but being able to do that, being able to create a legacy for my future family, being able to make sure my kids have all the opportunities that they want to have. I think there's so many different benefits of having that, having that delayed gratification, that, just having, it's a lot of work, so I think you're front loading your work to really compound later. So really putting in the work now so you can reap the benefits later.
Makes perfect sense. I heard both legacy in there, as well as just the freedom of choice, being able to choose your lifestyle and choose that you want to work versus having to work. So I agree with you. My financial freedom is based on the fact that, I did a lot of my work up front, right? Front loaded it, got married late, got one kid because I got married late. My body's like, yeah, no, you're an old lady, honey. You ain't getting another one. Like, that was as good as it got. But at least I got one. And I'm very, 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 very grateful that I have one because now I can pick her up at school. What does my financial freedom mean to me? My financial freedom means to me that I get to be the mom I want to be, not the mom that I'm allowed to be based upon my financial picture. And so that's me.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's a beautiful thing about it.
Brian, thank you for your time. Thank you for the interview. Thank you for the authenticity, the stories, and the knowledge, and the tips and tricks. If people want to get a hold of you, they want to invest in Texas, they want to invest in Arkansas, they want to pick your brain, they want to be able to hand you $100,000 and say, here, find a good place for it. How do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can shoot me an email, say, hey, I listened to you on Christina's show. Brian, BRIAN @wagerscapital.com. We also have our website, wagerscapital.com. There's an invest tab. You can go there to sign up for Investor Club. We send out information about what we got going on, about any podcast or any YouTube stuff that we're doing. So yep, right there, join our Investor Club. So,
yeah.
wagerscapital.com/invest.
Beautiful. And you said you also have a podcast, is that correct?
YouTube channel.
YouTube channel. That's what it is.
Yep. So we send out some of our, once you're on our email list, we'll send out the YouTube channel videos as they come out. So,
and I assume they can type in your name, WAGERS, on YouTube, and they'll probably find it.
It's actually Passive Income with Apartments.
Okay. Passive Income with Apartments.
Yeah.
Perfect. Brian, thank you so much. So appreciate your time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your knowledge. I am Christina Suter with the Real Estate Breakthrough Show. You can find us each week. Actually, we post twice a week on YouTube, Roku TV, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and iTunes, all under the Christina Suter How to Live a Rich Life. Thank you so much.